Good morning, everyone. Today is another episode of Arks Trash, which is my podcast, which means it will be audio only. However, as usual for my visual listeners out there, I have prepared a bunch of B-roll. It's actually a bunch of Dark Falls Rank 2 runs, which I did get some really nice loot. So if you want to watch the B-roll, feel free to watch it. There is a segment near the very beginning of the video about the first 20 minutes. I think it's like from minute 10 to minute 20. Where there is a visual picture which we talk about a little bit. So when you do get to that segment and you're a little bit confused on like what colors we're talking about and all that stuff, artsy stuff, you can just look at the screen because I will have the picture plastered there so that you know what on earth we're talking about. But before we jump into the video, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily. So if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Arks Trash. Today we have special guest KitsuBea. KitsuBea, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi. Yeah, so as Keroppi knows, I'm going to be pretty shy because this is like my first time doing something like this. But primarily NGS streamer, got to meet Keroppi and the rest of the streamers through PSO2, and they've been nothing but lovely. So I stream alongside them. They're really great people. Thanks for inviting me, though.
No problem. All right. Well, welcome KitsuBea onto the podcast. So the first thing I need to ask you is, of course, did you ever play the base PSO2 game, or did you come in after NGS was released?
So yeah, actually, when I heard that NGS, or not NGS, but PSO2 Global was coming out, I was really excited because I was playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14 and a lot of other different MMOs before then. For different publishers, both Asian and Western publishers. So seeing another sci-fi MMO, but especially like in kind of like an anime style, really appealed to me. And I have known of Phantasy Star prior. I actually played Phantasy Star Universe for a little bit, and I really liked the school and academia setting as well. And it was extremely immersive. And so coming into base PSO2, I really grew to immediately recognize and appreciate those aspects of it, and I guess ever since then I've just been really hooked on the art style.
So what is so special about PSO2? What hooked you in, other than like compared to all the other MMOs out there?
Oh my gosh, this is gonna sound really base, or like just really just simple, and I apologize about this in a way. Honestly, colors. It had some of the prettiest colors, and just like weapon customizations and like the different colors of the photons and things like that. I don't know why, just something as simple as just like the colors of the game itself could keep me logged in, like just being in the lobby for like, you know, like 7 to 8 hours just talking, but then also being able to do like the ultimate content and other things like that. Yeah, I'm sure for you, Keroppi, it was probably something like combat, right? Like, it wasn't something as simple as colors.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely the combat that got me in. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that you say colors. Could you explain a little bit more on that? So what do you mean by colors?
Yeah, so I guess I guess extending or dipping back into the introduction a little bit. So what like really inspires me about video games and what I kind of do today, and some of the things that I'm sure you've seen through my stream, is I'm actually an aspiring game artist. I'm going to school for visual arts, and I just love game art in general. Like, you know, I've used traditional mediums and stuff, but there's just something about just being able to see a character or the way that they move and the subtle nuances in that just kind of come to life through, I don't know, just like hard work and dedication that I feel like you find the same level of grind like in MMOs as well. And I think that's why they're so kind of addicting in a good way to play, because you get to show off those accomplishments of pulling off feats in game, or like, you know, getting a cosmetic achievement or things like that. So when I saw the color palette and just the way that the bloom effects worked and just how it all fits so appropriately, like into this really at the surface level, into like, you know, the UQ alarm pops off or something. It's a really like kind of just chill, kind of like sci-fi experience. from that player aspect, and they do such a good job with like just bringing that to life, like through their color usage. A lot of MMOs tend to be like on the more desaturated version of that, at least prior to things that we've seen. I feel, or at least from my perspective, seeing MMOs, like even the most colorful one before then, like no secret Final Fantasy 14 fan as well, but their color palette is extremely desaturated until you pop off skills. Here in PSO2, it's just part of the like ambiance in general, and it makes every little bit of it kind of exciting to take the time to look at, even though, you know, the textures may not be as such a high resolution as before. So that told me immediately that if things ever get stale, because as they will, you know, as like content cycles are in games, you know, content's released, there's a down point, right? And at least I knew during that down point, I was still gonna have like a really great time just hanging out in game and talking to friends, just because of just how beautiful it was in general. So yeah, that's where my appreciation for the colors comes from. I didn't try to eat them, I swear.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. So since you talk so much about the colors and about like how the game graphics as well as the color palettes, all of that, do you take a lot of screenshots in the game? Is that one of your hobbies that you like to do?
Yes, actually, I just started, mostly because like I'm such an appreciator for like how many good screenshots there are, like on Twitter, and the cosplay itself. Especially, I'm a big fan of like the Gundam cosplay right now, that you see in NGS, and that community is really cool on the Japanese side. But like, it's a really fun thing to do. Honestly, it actually is. And the the thing about it too is like, you think it'd be simple, right? Because like you have tools in game, you know, as well as like post editing that you can use to really like bring it out, and it's just right there and you can pause the moment. But it's actually quite challenging in itself, coming from photography as well, because I used to do that too. I like a lot of art. What can I say? But I really do like it, and I think it kind of helps bring like your character to life too. Like when you get to look at them, like whenever you're like logged off or something like that. I geek way too hard over the characters, so yeah, naturally photography almost as much as min-maxing.
Fair enough, fair enough. I just sent in our chat. You can take a quick look at that. I've recently been dabbling into the screenshot community, especially with Ship 4, and I've mad respect to people who take photos, because I don't know how they do it, but the way that they take the photo makes my characters look so much more lively and so much more like, they kind of look like you know, the figurines that you buy. It kind of looks like that is that type of quality, and I'm just like, dang, how's my character like looking like a figurine, or like looking like something physical that I would actually see in the real world? And it's kind of nuts how that's actually possible through the screenshots, you know? So I want to ask you, what do you think about my color palette? I'm going to be posting this picture in the video as well, so for all the viewers, if you are a visual watcher, you can see what the heck I'm talking about. If you're just a listener, don't worry, I'll elaborate a little bit more later. But yeah, KitsuBea, what do you think about my color palette or choice?
Yes, actually, I love it. And so here's one thing that I think, you know, adding on to what you said about how the screenshot like brings out the colors and stuff like that. Well, one thing that I noticed that the photographer did, and you see this in a lot of animes coming out now too, is there's a subtle bloom effect that occurs like just over the picture in general, which kind of helps soften it up and gives it like, I guess, a little bit more, somehow through like the power of illusion, more movement. Because when you do anime traditionally, it's pretty much kind of like frame by frame, and then you just like subdivide those frames, and that's how you get smoother animation like the dance ones. But for the most part, especially in some GIFs you see online, you can go down to like maybe 3 images, and 2 of them could even just be, you know, mirrored like reverse copies of themselves. But if you add that bloom, when the moment is static for just a moment, it kind of like draws the character towards you. And the thing I like about this photo too, it's like the eyes are pretty much dead in the center, but I think they definitely use the rule of thirds to break up the photo And in that way, it allows you to kind of section off, but not move ever so far away from the eyes. The eyes will always draw you back in. Now for your personal colors, I really do like the ultramarine blue for your hair. It is a very difficult color to pull off at first. Anyway, any of those really bright neon colors can be kind of invasive, like actually physically, and just kind of like as a viewer to the eye, as being just too overpowering or maybe too overstimulating. But with the white kimono, and then I think it's cerulean blue that you're using on the accents, it really helps soften that up quite a bit and give that more like gentle, kind of like reserved like appearance, but also if someone who's like reserved in a way that they're calm, like in the matters of like their mind and the soul and their heart. And that's like the kind of image I get when I just like look at your character from afar. And if I were just like kind of like, here, I think this is the dossier. So I think that you did really well on that. That being said, so usually in character design too, you use motives and such to kind of hint at deeper parts of their past or their personality where they're moving forward. So does the katana with the white, I forgot the wrapping, what it's called, but the wrapping, and then of course like the brass like hilt and like design there, and then the butterfly hair clip, do those hold any significant, like, you know, or like some big significance to you? I don't know how to say that exactly.
I'm gonna be very honest with you. I just thought it looked pretty, and that's why I put it in. I didn't put much other thought into like what you just said. It makes sense. Like I resonate with everything you just said, but yeah, it was just like a gut feeling. I was just like, yeah, you know, it looks good. I'm gonna stick with this kind of thing.
Yeah, it does look really good. I can imagine like, you know, after like a special like anime move finisher, just seeing like these lunar butterflies just kind of spring forth from the ground. Just like boom, hair clip motive.
Yeah, I guess, I suppose. But that's actually really interesting. You said a lot of things that I did not understand, which I am very curious about. So like, what is this rule of thirds? What is this?
So, it's so funny, 'cause I'm so used to just Googling this because I'm so visual. But basically what the rule of thirds is, just in the top of my head, is like if you imagine taking your picture and like you fold it inwards like horizontally till it's like each section, or it creates like 2 creases, which breaks the pictures into thirds, right? So I think like the rule of thirds is to have the proportions balanced, I think, between like those sections, so you could kind of like look at that section and then draw a picture from it, like just from that alone, and then kind of expand while you while your eyes travel across the entire picture. So even from the hilt, for example, breaking that into a third between where the gradient starts to shift between the grayish, like the grayish to the lavender on the butterfly hair clip. If you just draw a line down there vertically across that, like you can look more or less at the katana, and just like kind of draw your eyes into the details there, and then move out, you know, right across, and then see the face and then the hair, like with the movement going down. So there's yeah, it's kind of like 3 pictures making up one, if that makes sense.
How about just tell me the intended purpose? What does the rule of thirds, what does it do for the end user?
Oh, so it creates just balance like across the entire photo, so you're able to take in everything at once.
Okay.
And that's what this picture kind of does, yeah.
Gotcha. Because like I also heard that like if you have symmetry between your face, like both sides of your face, that is considered like absolute beauty or something. Is there some rule about that as well, or not?
Oh yeah, so they call it like, there's this thing called the golden ratio, right? And basically it's like an offset kind of rectangle, but a lot of buildings and a lot of things that we see in life are basically based off of that golden ratio. So in anime, the golden ratio, I think, occurs when you take the triangle and you lay it down on its side, so it's basically elongated, and that perspective right on the boundaries and the corners would be like where you would put your eyes, where would you put your mouth, on an anime character specifically. That's why when you kind of like look at some characters, if you remove the hair, they kind of look like, you know, like the green person alien kind of proportions for the head, and that's kind of why. It's because like everything The eyes and the mouth specifically are very exaggerated but simplified in order to bring out that beauty. So your character also has a bit of that golden ratio if you count from the tip of their eyebrow and then go over and just kind of trace the part of their face up into where the bottom lip is, where the chin starts to finally take that really like dramatic dive, that V dive that you see in a lot of anime art. So yeah, face is very well proportioned. Good sir.
Okay, I mean that's good to know, because I have no knowledge about any of these things. When I created this character, I literally sat in the salon and I just kept messing around with all the sliders till I got a face that looked nice, and I was like, oh, that looks good, and I stuck with it. But everything you say, it seems to make a lot of sense. But again, you know, you're the art expert. I don't know squat about art, so but something but something I want to bring to your attention, or at least get your opinion on, is the eye design. I feel like eyes in NGS are so detailed, even though it's such a small part of your character, and like you almost never see your character's eyes, especially in combat, which is like 90% of the stuff that I do. But I just noticed like how detailed the character eyes are. Have you had, you know, a chance to mess around with all the different options that we have and like looked at them?
So yeah, actually I spent a lot of time looking at what you would call like what on the AC Scratcher tickets, the cosmetics version. So the eyes, lipstick, and all that included. But the eyes specifically, what makes, I guess, like anime 3D art and just anime art in itself just very distinct is your character has it too, which is really, we have a really great example here. But it's the darker gradient on the top, like underneath the top lid, and then as you move down and look down the iris, it becomes lighter. I'm sure you can see that now as your character starts with like the midnight blue and then goes into that lighter shade. That right there is an anime trademark specific to this style. So it's really nice. And this is what I like about 2.5D, working with like hand-drawn textures and things like that. The eyes in this game are pretty much like, they mimic that very well, to where you have so many different styles of things that would appear to be like, I guess, different mediums in art. So for example, like when I look at your character's eyes, I think of like the brush strokes between the little line thingies in your eyeball. But that creates that texture. It kind of looks like not charcoal, but like pastel, like, you know, kind of like that type of material being drawn across. But it's like, it's not overdone like at all, and it's like it blends in well together, and it's like readable. So it's like the eyes in NGS, they are, from a distance you can appreciate them like as like how like simplified anime is drawn, but then when you get closer you can also appreciate like the time it takes to like actually draw out like all the different details. So it's a very like manga like effect, which we don't really think about at all actually in terms of just interacting with a game. But you know that when you see like an anime illustration, for example, you know, when they're animating really quickly, your brain isn't really going to take in all that information, but they also get away with just using like solid colors or maybe gradients, you know, because the focus is on the animation. So seeing that from far away, or having a design that kind of like, I don't know, just kind of embodies that, and then you get to move closer when you do your photography and check out how much detail there actually are in the eyes. Like they do a lot of really, really, really good work in terms of like how they bring their characters to life in this game.
So could you tell me, you know, other specifics on where they put details to bring the character to life? Because as a, you know, I'm very content centric, so I miss a lot of things, right? The eyes was an obvious one that I saw, but what else is there?
You know, the hair. The hair is really good in this game. Like extremely. Like there's people that dedicate their job, like when they work on games and things, to just crafting hair. So like hair is another one of those things that's really difficult to translate from 2D to 3D in some regards, because in 2D, or like, okay, so in filmography, I heard a quote once, I forgot who said it, but basically it goes like, if you're filming something, then when you hit the pause button, it should be able to create just like an image in itself, like a painting in itself. And like if you look at their screenshot, they did just that. Like, yeah, the character is, I guess, in a more static position, but I know that lobby action, and I think, you know, like it's, even though it's really good to look at from a certain perspective, you might get like an angle where it's just kind of off a little bit, and all of a sudden things just look disproportionate, and that's a huge thing in 3D as well. In NGS, I unbiasedly believe that they were able to knock out so many like new, consistent, and like anime styles that looked organic to the world and didn't look forced, you know, and be able to like sculpt them and craft them in such a way that they look good from those angles. I think that's quite a feat.
Okay, fair enough. I feel like we jumped a little bit too quickly into all of this NGS talk, that people don't actually know anything about you yet. So you make V2 models, right? You've made your own V2 model. So like, tell me more about that. Since you have this art background and now you do VTubing model and you have some experience with like game 3D art and animation, like elaborate on that for me.
Oh dear, okay. Yeah, so I started learning models, or like how to even like make models, like a year ago. So it hasn't been that long at all, but it did really, it's kind of funny because PSO2 brought that out in me. PSO2 and VR chat, honestly. But there's just something about seeing like that user-generated content like kind of come to life, and it really like, how can I say? It kind of brought up like my spirit of imagination, so to speak, because that's something I've always shared with video games as well. So yeah, man, I have so much to say on that. I don't know if you're ready for it, keroppi.
It's okay. We can start off like with segments. Just make them in organized segments and then just go.
Okay, so let's see. Dang. I don't know. This is gonna sound really simple. I like anime girls. A lot.
That's fair. That's a very fair assessment. Alright, what next?
You know? and that, I don't know, and that art in itself has like really, I guess, pushed me to kind of pursue just making VTuber models and learning more about like 3D art in general. Because I don't know, man. Like, there's just something about it. If I could just sit down and I just draw anime girls all day, like I'm set for life. Like, I'm good. I don't think I really need to do anything else. But in the challenge of, or like in just the initial like viewpoint of that, and just viewing that's like, oh, that's the reason I want to do art, I started to learn like a lot more about like I know we joke about the physics on my show a lot, but like I had to like, when before it became more streamlined, I had to learn about actual physics. Like I had to guesstimate the weight of a melon in order to see how the gravitational like spring would be, and things like that. And sure, like it's so funny because like you learn that a lot of things, especially after programmers have developed like tools for it, they just come down to being sliders. They eventually become procedural. But we mess with those a lot of those things in our video games as well, and especially in NGS. NGS has like some of the best sliders. So through experimenting with NGS and being inspired by other users like in VR chat and such, I began to slowly think like, like I could do something like this. Like if I'm kind of doing the same thing in game, it's not going to be as inept as a sculpting program, but a lot of the same tools and UI elements used in 3D modeling are the same in NGS. So it was an easier transition for me to decide to pick up art and go that way. And like I've done art before, like oil painting and landscapes and stuff, but I don't know, nothing really hits like anime girls, just like I'm just fueled by anime girls.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I like anime girls too, so we're in the same boat, but I do need to ask you about your model specifically. You've been working really hard the past week on your own model. So could you tell me about like the inspiration of your Fox Girl model, as well as the name? Why KitsuBea as well?
Okay. So I guess I'll start out with the name first. It's a shorter explanation, which will be a feat for me. But so KitsuBea is my girl's like moniker, right? This is me when I'm like out on the scene. You don't know, I've got like my anti-hero visage, I guess, and I'm out there like, you know, doing combat and stuff. But it's actually, so in terms of lore, it's actually my character's full name, Beatrix Kitsunagi, which in Japanese the surname comes first. So short, you just call it Kitsu, and then B for short, B for Beatrix. So that's, I guess, my full name in my alternate Fox Girl universe. But yeah, I don't know. Something about Fox Girls, I was just gonna do that. Just because like they're cute. And that's it. No, but honestly too, like I kind of really relate with the whole in mythology, kitsunes kind of have like a certain like charm, and it's very subtle too. The way that they do things, right? It's not like, well, I guess in some cases, if you have like a yandere character, maybe they'll be like a little bit more outwardly abrasive, so to speak. But the thing that I liked about it is like, in terms of me as a person, like I talk a lot, but I'm very kind of much that as well. Kind of just doing my own thing and just kind of reserved. So the allure of the kitsune girl just kind of, I felt like resonated in sort of like a superhero sense. So I went forward with that, and then initially, you know, just like a lot of us VTubers were infatuated with like twin tails in pink, and you know, my first character was that as well, and it was a default model and stuff. But as I started to push myself to kind of use VTubing as like a sort of self-expression, where I could like, how would I look like with short hair? How would I look like with this outfit on? And kind of just start designing those things for myself over time. I eventually came to this design, which is, I guess if you could describe it, would be like Dark Falls meets Code Vein sci-fi Tron girl with horns on my head. Because also maybe a succubus, but not really, because I'm wholesome. I just have a bad rap, so you know, we all wear the mask in our superhero outfits. But that's basically what I made for this one, and yeah, it's like cyberpunk and techwear fashion has always like really inspired me from an art design, because you have the intense bloom effects, you also have like materials that you can wrap around, and there's just a lot of fun textures to look at. I think it's a really defining art style in like our generation, to be honest, in both video games and illustrations. And you get to see a lot of that in Fuso too as well. So I learned as a dancer, I was like, you always want to look like you blend into your surroundings. So boom, I made this outfit.
So how long did it take you to make the initial model? Because you said you started a year ago, right? So how long did it take from starting from scratch, learning how to use the programs, to making your own model?
So this one in particular is made with Vroid, and that tends to surprise a lot of people because it's a character creation software, but I still had to learn, like, you know, all the movements of how to sculpt things in 3Ds as well to understand it. So basically I was studying 6 days a week, essentially. Like at first just an hour, well, at the very first, just trying to understand like one thing, and then over 3 days I might finally start to pick it up, at least like even be able to recall it by name, because working in, I guess, perceptual context for me is very difficult, you know, like working in like conceptual 2D versus 3D and such and such. I guess my brain just doesn't work that way, or maybe we're all like that, I don't know. But yeah, it took about six days a week of just intense studying, and even to this day, like it took me like maybe a month? Yeah, maybe a month to get like this 1.0 version out of what chat likes to call Dark Falls Kitsune, or Kitsune. But yeah, it took me about a month to even just get this part done. But like, just if you would imagine like the type of amount and labor it took from a visual standpoint, I guess you could say just look at oh god, okay, I'm so sorry, context. Just censor me if you have to. But look, the writing but the writing on my chest, just getting the glow on that correct, and like the shadows in that correct, like that actually took like a couple of weeks to figure out what the right proportions of colors would have been back in the past, you know? So like just like the smallest bits like that, and then moving outward over the whole outfit, everything kind of ties in together. And it took me a lot to realize that as an artist too. So yeah, it's like almost like a week, or sorry, not a week, a year of just like intense hardcore studying. And I'm learning new things every day now because how fast the industry moves too. And people are always coming up with like new inventive ways to kind of bring like more glam or more like interest to having viewers like, you know, watch the screen and spend time like that. You know, you always want to have people engaged with whatever you do in showmanship, right? So that in itself, and like learning those new techniques, like there's always something to learn when it comes to 3D art and game art and design for sure. And there's always something to invent, you know?
You know, I need to ask you, because you say you use Vroid as a basis to create your character, but the thing about your model specifically is it doesn't look like it was created from that software, because I don't know what you did. Maybe you can elaborate on like what exactly you did or why people think it looks different, because it just doesn't look like a Vroid model at all. Like, what did you do there? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of hard work and explanation behind it, but like, could you give me like the dumbed down version so that like I could understand what's going on?
Actually, yeah, respectfully, I can. I use 2.5D. So you see that in a lot of fighting games now. Guilty Gear, the new Dungeons and Duelists. I don't know. It was a it's a popular RPG thing. They turn into a fighter scroller, but basically 2.5D is like, it's exactly that. I have the 3D model, but what makes it different is the textures are all hand painted, like all of them. So that way, like, I'm kind of more, I guess, or the model's kind of more like a moving canvas versus something that is procedurally generated, because when you do it procedurally, that's where things kind of get lost in translation. Because, you know, anime itself is, you know, hand-drawn for the most part. They trace 3D models sometimes for smoother combat animation, but I looked at that concept, and then I just kind of like flipped the other side of the coin and just viewed it from the 3D to 2D perspective instead. So yeah, 2.5D. So that's why, like, you know, if I pause, I look more hand-drawn than, you know, vice versa, right?
Would you consider 2.5D, is that kind of like the HoloLive as well as like the Genshin Impact type of look or type of approach? Is it like that?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of more like Genshin, because Genshin in itself is fully 3D, right? My style is really inspired off of like the work that they did in that game as well, like the textures and such, yeah. Especially in the hair.
So you play a lot of Genshin, or you play a little bit, or nah?
No, not anymore. That game's dangerous for me.
Lack of self-control, huh?
Totally.
Gotcha. All right, no problem. So, you know, now that my audience has a better understanding of your background and like what you do and stuff like that, we need to talk a little bit about NGS now. About what's your favorite activity in the game? Like, what do you do whenever you log in?
I really enjoy the snowboarding in NGS. Like, I think that's the only way I'm doing my dailies, because I've gotten so complacent ever since I got my gear set. Like, I don't even try anymore, but I always, whenever I log into NGS, I always make sure to do like the little snowboarding gathering. Like, not even for the Blizzarium, it's just really fun. And you know, usually I'll put on some music and do that. But I would love to see them do more with that mechanic. What about you?
I'm definitely a combat zone person. I really enjoy doing PSE bursts and stuff like that. But recently, I've been doing a lot of Dark Falls Rank 2 as well as purple triggers. And something that I've come to realize very quickly was I need to sort out my friends list. My friends list is a disaster because I accepted everyone that has ever added me on ship 2. And so I don't know like 80% of the people on my friends list. And so when I'm trying to find friends to play with, I'm just like, I don't know anyone. Like, what do I do? And so this is something that I've found was really different from ship 2 versus ship 4. Like on ship 4, because the ship is so small, you kind of naturally meet everyone, right, over time. So in the course of about, I think, 5 months, I was able to know, you know, I want to say like, you know, at least 40% or 50% of the community in ship 4. So I know like the Spanish community, the Filipino community, and like you kind of reach out and you kind of know who's who. But on ship 2, like I really don't know that many people. I know like the content creators, of course, but that's pretty much my circle. It's my alliance and the content creators. So if people in my alliance aren't online, I'm just like, well, how do I do Dark Falls? I can't. And it really sucks where it's like you want to do some type of content, but you can't because you don't have friends or you don't have, you know, people that you know and stuff like that. And I'm just like, oh man, I wish there was an easier way to solve this. And so that's just been something I've been looking into recently. But what about you? Do you face these problems of like not enough friends or no friends to play with or not?
Actually, it may seem kind of strange, but yeah, I do. I think that's kind of like an innate MMO fear for any like end gamer, to be honest, is wanting to do the content or like an extreme mode, if you will, in a game, but just lacking, I guess, the connections. And you know, talking about having a way to solve that, we could just enter, I wish we could just enter like a global roaming like matchmaking queue. Like even if it was region specific to start, it would actually make a lot more sense, you know, because we do kind of have that, but like aren't you constrained to the area and you can't really move anywhere? So like it kind of sucks a little bit. It would be nice if you're able to run around and still play the game and do whatever it is you're doing to the fullest extent and have that queue as well. But yeah, no, I sometimes I even feel like, oh dear, if I'm not live, like am I actually going to be able to even get people to join me in game? Like how difficult is it? And I kind of feel like it could just be an exaggerated fear if there was just some way to, I guess, have more communities, or not communities, but like maybe like just natural gameplay activities in the game that kind of promote groups and socializing. Like we had alliances in base PSO2, there was a reason to like, okay, well, if you didn't cap out on alliance points, you could do a casino night, you know, and you could get to know people that way. There was a lot of different auxiliary activities in order to facilitate group making and just, you know, like achieving a goal with like, well, when you first join an alliance, you don't know everyone, so strangers, right? And I think that's one of the reasons the base PSO2 community is so strong too. I don't think NGS really has anything like that right now. It's kind of a free-for-all, and yeah, that is a scary thought. I don't know. Do you think like that kind of system would help, or do you have an idea as well?
To be perfectly honest, I think NGS does have systems. It's just that a lot of people don't use it. For example, we have the group chat system where you can invite 100 players in and, you know, you have like your own little, basically a pseudo alliance chat, right? Because it's a group chat. But the thing is, not a lot of people use group chats. You've got the small minority of like people who are doing like captain farms, deafness farms, stuff like that. They have their own little group chats. And those group chats are very active. But the thing that really I find very difficult is because we're content creators, we're streamers, we're YouTubers, whatever. A lot of people are very shy around us and they're just kind of like, oh, they have their group already. They assume that we already have like a gajillion friends, but that's not really the case. And I find it very difficult to approach other people and be like, hey, can you invite me into that group chat? Can you do this? Can you, like, it's not in my DNA to do that. Usually if I want something to happen, I usually just create it myself. But like creating a group chat, selecting my friends, selecting people that are suitable, that have good chemistry and all of that, like I overthink things very, very easily. And I start thinking like, okay, if I need to do this, I need to do it right. And if I want to do it right in quote unquote my standards, it overcomplicates things and it makes things so much more work than it needs to be. And usually I end up stressing myself out. And in the moment I start stressing out, I'm just like, no, it's not worth playing the game. I close the game and I just move on to something else. And that's what that's my thought process, and so I never end up making a group chat or doing anything about the problem that I have because I just don't want to deal with it. And yeah, so that's my dilemma. What about yours?
You know, now that you mentioned the group chat, no, that actually makes sense, and I get that too. Because like when I build something in game, I always want to like bring the most out of it because I want people's time to be validated by the experience too. So whether that's like hosting like a roleplay club, or an actual in-game working roleplay club, you know, just things like that. It just, you know, you want them to eat. I do. I feel the weight of that responsibility already. Just wanting it to be like the best for that moment. And yeah, I think it is kind of easy to collapse on oneself. But I think that's where it really takes a moment to kind of like, one thing I do a lot is like, I'll take a deep breath and just like stand back and be like, all right, you know what? Let's just get the map out. You know, if I can take all the details out of my head and just have them in front of me, then maybe I can do something like a semblance of what my anxiety brain is telling me I should be doing, like with my in-game experience or creating these groups, and then instead just, you know, starting simple and let it build upon itself. But I think the one fault with the group chat is it is a really great tool, obviously, but the biggest flaw it has going for it right now is you can only have one open at a time. So you don't really get to see who's active on the other channels like in real time unless you're logged in. So it's a what was it? How do you call it? Like a false positive, right? Because you'd maybe log in from like, let's say you go from your captain chat to like I don't know, your screenshot chat or something, and no one's talking already, you know, because like even though those people might be, you know, looking for that content on the side, the game only shows us like one of the chats at a time. So I think that it would be a major improvement just having all 5 or however many channels it is active. But you're right. Those tools, a lot of like, I guess they're called like UI Easter eggs, are kind of hidden in the game, it seems, that aren't really talked about a lot. Like the mag tool being able to do like radar stuff. It was probably in a tutorial at one point, but me being a dumb non-reader, it just like totally skipped past it. But I don't know. I feel like communication in the game, especially with like how new players, the XP streamlined now, but you have to go across 2 zones basically before you can get to like the super sweet Kavar zone, like everyone else is hanging out. But like until then, you're kind of on your own, and I think because of that, it doesn't, you know, like it's like tripping over yourself at the like when the lights go off on a race. You know, you just get a false start, like boom, you trip on yourself, and now you're like, okay, well, let me catch up to this MMO experience. Because in terms of learning the game itself, it's actually not that bad. Come to think about it, compared to some other games I've picked up recently, But yeah, the social part is pretty much like has its wings clipped for the most part, and I think that kind of makes it a little difficult as well in order to get those groups. But yeah, it is true though. People definitely think that you're surrounded by like a wealth of friends, but I think one thing that people don't realize either, even at like this earlier stage in entertainment, is they kind of expect to always see the keroppi, you know, like the YouTuber and stuff, and it's like sometimes you're just keroppies just woke up and just getting coffee, and then that keroppi brain is like different, and I feel that too, like being KitsuBea, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like as a content creator or as a streamer, you do have like your reputation sort of on the line whenever you create something or like organize something. It's kind of like people come to, you know, they want to do urgent quests and they want to do events with me because they know that, oh, you know, Kero has a reputation. Do you have like a reputation or like a standard to uphold?
I think for me, I've actually worked very hard to do the opposite. The standard for me, I've learned, is really just kind of unapologetically being myself. Because as much as I think everyone wants to succeed, for me, if the cost is at the metrics that I feel like I'm always wound up so tight, then I don't think it can work for me, in the long term. Like I might get those material senses of success, and of course there's a lot of pitfalls and things that people can fall into, but I feel like from my perspective, worrying about it too much puts me apt into creating these experiences for myself. So now, like, and reflected like in the new design that I made for my character, how I kind of labeled the persona as like the good bad girl, right? But it's because I realized at some points you don't have to even be a content creator to feel this, no matter what you do, like something is going to be disliked about oneself, like, and you can't really help that. It's just something that happens. You could be wearing blue shoes and boom, you're disliked, so like I learned that it's okay, that there are going to be some things that I do that people are not going to like, or they're going to be like, oh, well, maybe we want the old KitsuBea back with like flowers in her hair or something. Like she was a lot cooler, but does it make me happy? Does that make me fulfilled? And it's finding that gentle balance between being pragmatic and forward thinking, so you can find the success for yourself in art, content, whatever. But there's also the fear that, and I see this a lot too, in myself and in various stages in people's like interactions online, is the struggling with oneself. But I genuinely hope that everyone can like come through that and be able to set forth that vision in their mind, at least fivefold, because I truly believe that it is possible. And hanging out with all my friends, hanging out with you, I see that in everyone, honestly, like that little thing that makes them shine. And I think everyone can honestly get it as long as they are able to focus on that and the happiness that brings, like, but specifically to oneself. It's not worth sacrificing oneself.
Very wise words, very wise words. To be honest, what you said really reminded me of when I had the podcast with Orihime. Orihime had the exact same issues that you just outlined, where we were so focused on numbers and we were so focused on viewer count and like how to get the views and stuff like that, like the numbers part basically. And because of that, it was killing our creativity and basically our soul, right? Because when we're streaming, when we're creating content, you are literally pouring your soul and hard work and effort into creating a piece of art or an entertaining video or a stream. And when you're so concerned about like, how do I get the clicks? How do I get the views? How do I get the people to come to my stream? It really kills creativity, because instead of focusing on like what you want to do and what you enjoy, you're so focused on like, okay, what is the meta? What do people want to watch right now? What should I do to clickbait them and all this stuff? And it's not a good place to be, because Orihime has been there before, I've been there before, and like it was just very, very unhealthy. And so I really resonate with what you just said of like, listen, you just gotta be yourself, and if you can't be yourself, then just take a break or do what you gotta do basically, right? And I really liked what you just said earlier, so very good advice.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you still have more that you wanted to add?
Oh, I was just gonna say, if I can share,
go ahead.
One of the experiences that I watched actually on your stream that inspired me, and I popped in for a little bit. You're running your ticket farm and stuff, and you had mentioned that a younger family member of yours, I think maybe niece, said that she knew that you did that you did YouTube, and she thought that was just the coolest thing ever. And like, I don't know, I could tell there was just like a tone shift, like an unseen tone shift, like in just the way that you spoke and like carried about yourself. It was like ever so subtle, but there was just like that peak protagonist moment for Keroppi. And I saw it and it's like, yeah, you know what, like, my niece thinks that's pretty validating, so I'm glad that like the rest of my family can feel that validation or have like a metric to understand that validation as well. and what it's all about. It's like art, especially art, they tell you how undervalued it is, like growing up. But literally, it's like everything that we seek to do, or we see around us, or even the things, especially the things that they're trying to sell, it's all done with art, you know? So like it has way more value and more than even just like regular plain like, you know, monetization meanings to I guess for its place in the world, you know? And that really just comes from being yourself. Okay, I'm done. You're amazing, Keroppi. Just wanted to tell you that. That really inspired.
Thank you. But you know, for sure, I definitely, you know, we're all human. We all seek validation somehow or in some way or sometimes. But when my niece was just like telling her friends at school, "Oh, my uncle's a YouTuber," like you know, that's flattering. To me, that is the pinnacle of flattery, right? So I was very, very happy that, you know, my niece watches my videos and stuff like that. Like, she doesn't understand it. She doesn't really play. She doesn't play PSO2. She plays like Cookie Run and like, you know, the mobile games basically. And so she doesn't get it, but she knows that, well, you know, listen, my uncle's a YouTuber, and to me that's enough. That's more than enough, and that's like an honor in my opinion that, yo, a family member watches my content and enjoys it, even though she doesn't get it. I think she actually watched my mukbang video. I did a mukbang video on my channel when there was a KFC and Genshin Impact collaboration. And she loved that video because, you know, you understand mukbang. It's just like, there's food, I'm eating the food, I'm telling you how good the food is. And it's simple, right? It's very easy to communicate that and understand it. And so that was one of her favorite videos, which is really awesome. But, you know, I do want to shift the conversation now to, it's currently the Ultra PSO2 week or double week. And so there's a lot of rare drop rate going on. I want to ask your thoughts about rare drop rate. What do you think about it?
Oh man. Yeah, I have some very emotional feelings about rare drop rate. You know, in rare drop rate as a whole, if you're not looking to min-max, and you really don't need to, like the most you have to do is like kind of like your enchantments and your augments are enough, but as far as like getting fixes and things, if you're looking for just a very baseline, like you can actually just do things but not very well, like you're riding with training wheels, you can get what you need in this game. Like you can even pick up a weapon for like 1,000 Meseta, but in terms of what it actually costs in order to like regularly earn things like you would do in a normal, like, or in a previous past like generation MMO where there's like greens, blues, purples, etc., it's pretty near impossible, honestly. It is a lottery-based system unless somehow you're able to jack the number up to like an ungodly threshold, and even then, it doesn't really feel like it, you know? And like, I've even heard the tin foil hat, like, I'll just call it that. I guess idea that it's tied to how much AC you spend in game too, you know? And man, I'm not saying it's that, but if it were that, that'd be so extremely predatory. If like luck was kind of like that. But yeah, for the most part, unless I'm farming capsules, rare drop it just kind of feels like a lie. I feel like it's specifically just for like maybe capsules at a baseline, but I never feel like I'm going to get like the weapon I need from dropping alone. I'll probably end up having to like, you know, flip fashion on the personal store or something like that. But I don't know, have you had like a moment where you just felt like you got the thing that you exactly needed with just rare drop alone, or?
So I want to dispel your tinfoil hat theory that you heard about like spending AC increases your rare drop, whatever, because I've had the exact opposite. For those who don't know, I play two separate accounts. I have my Steam account, which is the one that you see in 90% of my videos. The one that is the official content creator. I get the free premium every single month because of being an official content creator. And on that account, I literally ran Dark Falls for 4 hours with 200% rare drop rate. I got nothing to show for it. And then I log into my free-to-play account, which is the Epic Games account, which I play on Ship 4, I literally go to do my dailies and I get a rocks weapon. My first run of Dark Falls, I get a rocks weapon. Like, I think it was my 4th run of Dark Falls, I get a rocks katana. And I'm just like, what is this? The free-to-play account has 0 rare drop rate. Because it's free-to-play, the only way I can get rare drop rate is from the mag buff, right? So that's it. You've got the mag buff, you've got maybe your concert buff, and you know, I didn't pop any boosters. And I was getting rocks weapons left and right compared to my main account where I'm running 200% rare drop rate. I'm just like, this is rigged. And so to this point, I've really been convinced that rare drop rate doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to spend any more star gems or like any more resources on boosters because I think it's just a lie. Like, the only time I need rare drop rate is if I'm doing like deafness farming. Like, if I'm farming for capsules, then sure, I'll need it. But that's it. That's my take.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad we're on the same point on that because I know that through observations, I've seen instances where some games, MMO specifically, like will increase a player's rare drop rate the longer they've been away from their account in order to, you know, basically boost retention through dopamine. So yeah, personally, I would not spend the money on like try boosts or anything. Sometimes I do, like you mentioned, capsules. They're extremely good for capsules and grinding that out, but it's, for any kind of weapons or expecting anything from that, no, forget it. No way. Like, you can't, because like, one, just in good practice, it wouldn't be to use something that costs either a premium currency or just a straight up, you know, just paid one, you know, in order to obtain. And let's say, even if you're able to knock down a Dark Falls run, this isn't in terms of like speed running, but let's say you get it at like 10-minute average, you know, that's 6 runs maybe per hour, right? So you're still not even really getting your money's worth because you're only getting 6 rolls in that hour. So yeah, no, I honestly wouldn't. Like, maybe the 10 SG or like the 18 SG ones, like maybe from the capsule farm, or like from the treasure shop, maybe like the 10 SG one, if I know I'm just gonna like just turn off brain and just run capsules all day and I just feel like seeing the increase. But in terms of, yeah, getting the weapons like that, no, absolutely not. it definitely does feel kind of predatory.
Okay. I don't think it's predatory. I think it's a little bit of flawed game design because the way that you noticed it for sure when we went into Kavaris versus Ritem, the drop rate for all of the 6-star rarity weapons were dropped significantly. We never saw like rocks weapons or let alone rugged, you know, the 7 stars. Like, those weapons are so freaking rare. Like, it was absurd to the point that, you know, freaking Renova needed his stupid katana and it was going for like 10 million, 12 million on the market, and we're just like, what the hell's going on? And like, people were farming dread enemies and everything, but it was still that expensive because of how freaking rare the drop rate was. And so I feel like it's a game design flaw. They wanted to increase player retention to play more by artificially decreasing the drop rate. So it's like, okay, yeah, there's more quote-unquote content. You can grind for these super rare items. But the thing is, they overestimated their average player's attention span. We don't grind for hours on end. Like, okay, there's a couple exceptions, but the majority of the player base, they're going to try their luck for like an hour, at most 2 hours. If they don't get it, they're going to be like, fudge it, I'm done. And then they log out, right? So I don't like this design, this game design. I feel like it's very lazy. I felt like we should have a more progressive way to gear up and progress in the game and get stronger and stuff like that. Or a more linear path, I guess. So, you know, I'm hoping to see that be addressed in the NGS headline, which is the next topic I want to talk about. Do you have anything else to add on the topic of rare drop rate before we move on?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so next up is, of course, the NGS headline. That's literally airing like tomorrow. So what do you expect to see in it? What are you expecting? You know, your hopes and dreams and copium.
Oh my gosh. I think maybe we'll have more story on the quintuplets, but honestly, I'm just completely non-invested in their story. Like, kind of at all. And I don't mean that as a dunk on anyone's enjoyment. Like, it just doesn't feel like something that ties me into the world, character-wise. Kind of just spectating, which is weird. But, yeah, maybe more information on Waker. I honestly, like, I really don't know if I can say that I would expect too much, and not in a bad way. I'm just kind of like, there are things, I guess there are things that I want to see so more that I feel like may not come to fruition. So in my version of my own copium, I've conditioned myself to not expect anything from the headline at all. But in that way, I guess I usually get pleasantly surprised. I personally just kind of wish that we could see more on like dev thought process and things like that, instead of like such a big AC segment. Because the thing is, it's like, we're gonna take the time on our own to really see the AC stuff. It doesn't have to be like as encompassing as it is now. But I don't know, we'll see. I would love to see like what are they gonna do, like planning for the next region, or maybe like how maybe they could bring back old regions to life, so then when new players join in August, like, I think it would be a much better player retention experience as a whole anyway, if there is a reason for, I guess, veteran players or previous players or whatever to come back to these zones and also interact with the new players too, you know? But I don't know if we'd have anything like that. What do you think? I'm pretty sure you have like way better contributions than I do.
Nah, it's okay. I wanted you to get the first jab in to hear your initial thoughts. But, you know, now I'll give you the facts. So the things that we are guaranteed to see, because they literally wrote it out in the YouTube description of the headline, is we will get information about the Waker. We're probably going to get to see the skill trees, the skills, basically everything we saw on the Arks Expo in Japan, but in an English version. Probably that's it, right, about the Waker. I know we're going to see the new roadmap. So we're going to get the new roadmap for the second half of 2022. So we will know, okay, when does the volcano region come out? I don't know if we'll get information about after, but for sure we'll see the progression from like right now all the way till December. So that's going to be very nice. We're going to see, you know, okay, when do we expect level increase? What gear or what type of content or gameplay loops is going to be introduced? That's going to be nice. And then the last thing that is there's two more things. There's the 10th year anniversary thingamajig. I have no idea. They're going to announce winners or something, maybe costume design or item design stuff. So that's okay, I guess. But the operation report's coming back because Hiro Arai he's back from his vacation. So we will get I'm assuming it's going to be a lengthy operation report because he has to answer like 3 months worth of questions, right? So I think it's going to be a little bit longer than usual. And hopefully, you know, it'll answer some of our, you know, concerns and questions to a certain degree. You know, I have a question for you regarding the operation report, because you said you wanted some more information or thought process from the devs, and the operation report is essentially that, but in a very like casual form. What do you think about the operation report? Does it, you know, fulfill your need to know about the thought process, or do you think they could go into more detail or something along those lines?
So, man, since he's been gone so long, it feels like we haven't seen one forever, so it's kind of hard to draw back on those experiences right now. But I kind of feel like honestly, while the operation report has been gone, what has given me more satisfaction in terms of like, I guess, Q&A, or at least being heard, is the official Discord for global, because people will voice and ask questions there, like essentially in real time. It is in real time, right? I kind of hope that we'll see more elaborate answers to the questions and requests asked there as well. It almost seemed as before, from just recapping or just glancing, that the questions that were picked seemed kind of sporadic and not really representative as like the community as a whole. And I think that kind of increased a little bit more tension than really was actually even necessary to begin with. And you live and you learn from those experiences too. But I think if the operation report this time is a little bit longer, maybe we'll get more insight into those questions and feature requests as well. So I like what they have in order to be able to do it, especially in Lifetime with Hero. But I think it just needs to be more concise and focused, so that we all feel like we're being heard, at least to a certain degree,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I feel like they could, obviously they do have to do PR stuff as well, right? They can't pick the most controversial topics and address that, because I know that's not good PR, right? You don't want to pick the most hot topic, but it's very controversial, upset half of the community with your answer, and just like have a huge mess, right? So I get why they avoid specific questions, which like we really want to know the answer to. But I definitely would like to see a little bit more balance, right? So maybe in the operation report, they'll talk about, the fashion stuff first, and then they'll talk about their game design. Then they'll talk about, improvements for specific systems or something. Like have different categories so that there's a good spread of the questions, and they're answering different communities' needs basically. I would definitely like to see something along those lines, instead of right now where it's just like, okay, who the hell asked that question? I know a lot of people had that type of feeling when specific questions came up. It's just like, that's such a dumb question, who the hell asked that? So if they were to spread it out into different categories, I think it would answer at least some questions for everyone, right? It's better to make everyone a little bit happy than just upset everyone, or just upset the majority or something like that, right? But we are running out of time here, so KitsuBea, do you have anything else or final thoughts that you want to talk about before we start wrapping things up?
The one thing that they really need to add is a greater sense to the lore, or a greater sense to where your character ties into their place in the world itself. I think that with the story, like if I was to see something that would really please me during the operations report, is to kind of hear the story expanding, instead of like being focused on Crawford and his laser or something like that. Like, what is the actual purpose for like the Arks coming down in pods and landing in Hapla and just being there? Because we're kind of thrust with this sense of like greater just immediate responsibility from basically being a demigod in base PSO2. So like, but what does that mean for like NGS players coming in now, this being their first game? I would like to see like what Sega does and how they're able to solve like that problem, because right now the introduction to NGS is just way too like bland for anyone to really get invested in. So.
I would go even more aggressive than that. I would say the introduction for NGS is weak. It's really, really weak. There's no hook, right? It's like when you watch an anime, you've got like the first 2 to 3 episodes, and you need to hook the audience in. You need to have the world built, you need to have some character development, and then you need an ongoing plot to hook the viewers in, to be like, yo, I want to know what's happening. I want to know what happens next. In NGS, the storyline falls flat. Like, it begins, it gives you false hope. You get there, you go to the Alio town or whatever, and you're just like, yo, there's a town, yo, there's people. Oh, look, there's the big, the big protagonist chieftain guy. And then, like, bam, the whole city gets blown up, and it's just like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. And it just, there's no character development and world building. You just only, you know, I don't want to go into too much spoilers and stuff because people got really upset in my previous podcast where I was talking about the base game. And so basically the TLDR is like there's no need to know what's going on. I think that's one of the weakest parts of NGS. You play through the story and you're just a bystander. While if you played the base game, like you're in the center of everything. You are the protagonist. You really feel like the protagonist. While in NGS, you're just kind of like a fly on the wall and you're just watching at everything from a distance and you're like, wow, you guys are all useless. Let me come in and save you all. You fix everything and then you become a fly on the wall again, right? And you're just like, why? Why am I here? Like, you travel all the way from Ritem to Kavar. Oh no, that's story spoilers. Never mind. I'm gonna cut that out. But like, you know, like there's no hook. There's no character development. There's no progression. You're just like going from point A to point B to do stuff because the game tells you to do it, right? There's no story driven anything. And so I 100% agree with you. Story is the weakest part of the game right now. And I want them to make it better, basically. Like, you know, sure, if it's a slow start into a ramp up into something insane, that's fine. But it needs to ramp up to something insane because you've played PSO before, you know, their stories are always like really mind-boggling, like what the heck is going on, right? It has that scale of grandness all the time. And NGS doesn't have that yet, unfortunately.
One day, hopefully. That's all I have to say about that, but yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we basically ran out of time. But I'm going to open the floor now to you, KitsuBea. So if you have any shout-outs or socials you want to say, the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, cool. Thank you for having me, Keroppi. I guess you can catch me on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. EST till about 2. And yeah, hit me up on Twitter too if you want to chat. You guys be nice. Yeah.
Perfect. So KitsuBea's socials will be in the description below. So make sure to give her a follow and all of that.
Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again.
And that concludes this week's episode of Arks Trash. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye.
What can I say except you're welcome for the heals, the boosts, the res.